Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everyone. It's so exciting to see you. Really, happy to see all of you. Thank you all for being here for the virtual launch of my artist book, Renew. This is what it looks like. And we printed it actually a couple of months ago. We had some signings in the driveway, but we wanted to have a proper launch that everyone could join. And I'm so excited to see so many of you from all around the country and the world joining today, this afternoon. I wanted to thank designer Eric Moe for working with me on this beautiful book, and the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities for supporting the book and the projects that are within it. So, and also I wanted to thank Kritika Ghosh for co-hosting on Zoom today, and also Nella Hugaboom in London, who's interning and helping us out. And I wanted to thank all the photographers and filmmakers who've helped me with the work and whose work is featured here: Lena Jayaswal, Paris Preston, Ben Rose, and Nandita Ahmed, and so many participants and so many curators and installers and others have helped with this project. Thank you all. This book initially was just going to be a little book about the Rapture Public Art Project, my first public art project, and some of the poetry that was generated in that project. And then when I started to work on the book during the pandemic, I realized that I should probably also include the sort of offshoots of the other. I started tracing the saris that were made in Rapture. Rapture was a big public art project in DC, funded by the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities, where I worked with the public, almost 200 people in DC and dozens in Katakali village, Bangladesh, to create 65 saris with woodblock and writing about climate change, and then use those saris to cover 5 historic buildings in Anacostia on 3 separate days in a big outdoor installation public art project. And so the project began in December of 2018, but we started actually November of 2018, and we started making saris, and then some of the saris went to Miami in December 2018, right after the midterms. And we had this performance. Some of the saris were used in a performance called Rising with 1 Billion Rising, a global platform to end violence against women. And we created this almost blue wave representing the ocean, the rising sea, but also the wave of women and trans and POC women that were entering Congress that year. And so the book sort of traces the saris as the Rapture saris as they went. They were also used in performances, installations in New York, 2 projects in New York in 2019, and then in Paris as well. And then we finished the Rapture project in May. And then after that, some of the saris went to Italy in December for the Tides installation, and those images are in here as well. And then poetry was generated sort of organically out of the project. I realized while people were working on the saris, we had these sari workshops in DC. The people in DC are really strong with spoken word and rap and poetry, and they were writing and rapping and singing as they were working on the saris. And I started to think, well, maybe we should write some poetry. And I suggested to people, why don't we take some breaks and write poetry, and then we can put them on the saris. And people started writing poetry. And then I started recording them, and some of those appear in the book. And I actually wrote a couple of poems for the book as well. So I wanted to thank also the presenters tonight. I'm going to introduce them one by one. We're going to start with the amazing Purvi Shah, one of my favorite people. Purvi's, I'm going to read her bio. Purvi's favorite art practices are her sparkly eyeshadow, Raka's laughter, and seeking justice. She won the inaugural Sony South Asian Social Service Excellence Award for leadership fighting violence against women. Her new book of poetry, Miracle Marks, explores women, the sacred, and gender and racial equity. discover more at Purvi Poets, and her website, purvipoets.net. And Purvi, I'm really, we saw each other, I think, last at the 2 Minutes to Midnight project. And that was really, and I haven't seen you since then, but I'm really happy to have you here. And I'm remembering that we were also together 4 years ago, right after the Trump election, the Community Studio Symposium in New York. And it was a very dark moment, but I wanted to introduce you. Purvi's going to start us off with a poem.
Thank you so much, Monica, and so delighted for your book. I agree, the blues are so beautiful and life affirming, and I think this you timed this perfectly. It's been a week of renewals. There is so much that we have to contend with, and it's ongoing injustices. And I think your work shows us the power of community, of collecting, and also what art can do in the world, which is bring public together. And so thank you for your art, thank you for your activism, and thank you for how you build community. I'm going to share a poem which intersects with the work that you do about water. And it's tied to the fact that across so much of the world, women and girls spend a lot of their days, a lot of their months trying to get water. And in fact, as UNICEF says, it's as if a woman started with her empty bucket in the Stone Age and didn't arrive home with water until 2018. And this poem emerges from one of the things that I used to do when I was spending time with my grandmother was help fill up the water tank in the morning. Saraswati works water, hums generations. Each day, your water tank overflows. Motor running, mind forgotten, clamor of reminiscences, roar of a husband past, buzzless bungalow now left to manage, to occupy, to mark as your own. Each day surprise captivates you. 85 and still newly single, 70 years of spilled news as marriage. Through whetstones, you hear wives' tales and chant. Behind that, you burn, caged ocean as tremor. A sea away, I hear murmurs, legacy or premonitions, my own longings for a home to hold, a body to hold, stillness or waters as meditation, as bursts for which we are still praising. With 4 daughters, it's near a handful. That missing son, a bent thumb, another iron gate to cross. Forget the spilling tank. Forget the risen breads. I want to learn horses, how to ride gust, bear ancestors through my hair, shatter every dwelling into dispatches on a hero's quest. Fill the well of our longings with visions of surrender, a self never in need of repair. In mornings, you petition creation. Wick struck, a gulmohar fallen from a tree older than you, how you kneel to pick its fruit, how a bed graces earth across dearth, how your visions of life and death are like the walls of your own heart, pumping, bifurcating, relentlessly congregating. The value of water, even before a cyclone, the value of women, even before the public sphere, the value of a bed before it is dusk, before you need to make it home with the day's wash or sloshing pots or tomorrow's tank. How we live for lineage, grains to mouths, spills to plenty, women to women. How we live as a lamp in service of being lit. How we live, replenishing what we have spilled with day's making, cupping darks, sieving what we have into a smaller tank, into space of wanting for naught and not wanting for, boundless reservoir of our wantonly spilled dreams. Thank you all so much. And again, congratulations, Monica.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Give it up for Purvi. Oh my God. Beautiful. Is that on your book? Is that in your book?
It is. It is. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounded familiar. I read it a long time ago, but beautiful, beautiful.
Fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you so much. A joy to be with you all.
Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Oh my goodness. I didn't realize there were so many people on.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
I'm going back and seeing so many of you on here. Thank you to everyone that's here from all around. Oh my goodness. I'm next going to introduce another one of my very favorite people, Leah Stoddard. She's my friend since middle school. Leah Stoddard has curated over 100 exhibitions, including 12 large-scale projects for the Taubman Museum of Art in Roanoke, Virginia, where she was a deputy director of exhibitions and the adjunct curator of contemporary art until 2014. In addition, she was the director of Second Street Gallery, a nonprofit art space in Charlottesville, Virginia, for 8 years, and the first development director of the McGuffey Art Center. She's an independent curator, artist advisor, and teaches at James Madison University, including courses in museum studies and Renaissance to modern art. She has an MA in art history and criticism from Stony Brook University and a BA from Carleton College. She's also participated and helped out with a number of my projects, and went to Athens with me and helped me build this entire installation. So she's a woman of many talents, and she wrote this beautiful essay for the book, and it's called Provenance and the Life of Saris. So I'm going to put Leah on next. Give it up for Leah.
I'm unmuted myself. Hello. It's hard to follow that amazing is it Purvi is amazing. Thank you for sharing your words with us. And my words are different. I wish I could write poems. I'm just married to one, a poet rather than a poem. But I do want to thank everyone for coming today. This is a great turnout, and it's not a surprise because Monica's artistic project has always involved community building and collaboration, and it's what makes it, for me, something so refreshing and alive. And when she asked me to write an essay for the book, and the book, by the way, is an artwork, speaking as a curator. So do make a point of getting it because it really is about the interaction between the documentation of her workshops and her performance projects, as well as these poems that have sort of organically arisen from the interaction with the saris. So it's really a special sort of document and rare. You don't see many artists thinking that a catalog or a book is an important thing to do. But I can tell you as a curator, as an art historian, and as an art collector, this is a huge thing to do. It's a real, testament to, I mean, it's a lot of work, testament to her commitment, but also to documenting sometimes fleeting performances and workshops that not everyone can really get a sense of unless they have something like this, or unless we have something like today where we can talk about it. So she asked me to write an essay. I was very honored to have that. I've been a part of her site-specific installations, helping her design exhibitions. I've also been in part performances. I performed with Monica in Miami and and helped with the workshops and participated in them in DC and Athens. And it's been an incredible ride for the last 10 years. And so she asked me to write an essay. And what I wanted to do is give everyone a better sense of the scope and scale and the innovation of this kind of approach to art making that Monica has sort of developed. It's very, very unique. And it really centers on the sari. And I talk about in my essay, the sari is a stage where all this art collaboration happens. And as a Western person, I look at this textile and I don't have the same understanding, that I had before as I do now, because I understand that this piece of textile and all the art that happens in the workshops with woodblock printing and climate pledges and these poems, This then goes on to another space. Perhaps it's worn by someone. Perhaps all the saris are sewn together and wrapped around a group of women and men doing a performance on a beach. I mean, it goes from not only New York and Athens and Rome, but then these saris travel to Bangladesh, to Kathakali, to her ancestral village. And so for me, it's so unique to have an artist who uses an art material this way. And as someone who teaches art history, I'm so kind of tired of the object, you know, this thing that persists and it's consistent. And here we have an art object that's infused with life, with so many voices, with so many hands touching it, with such a journey across so many bodies of water. It just makes the sort of thinking of what an art object is so much more elastic and dynamic to me. I can't tell you. And I think all of us experience that when we see the work, even in this book. The other thing I talk about is authorship. There's so many artists that are individuals. They want to sign their art and call it their own. And Monica does that, but much more, in that we know it's her project, but she honors everyone who participates. She honors the collaborators. She gives them wings to fly with. She gives them a stage and lets them be actors, lets them expand the project, lets them have a voice. And so that willingness to share authorship is also, I think, incredibly important to the future of art, honestly, and to activism. You know, how do we activate activism visually, collaboratively, like she encourages? And then finally, as I was thinking about it, I was thinking about how she was not only allowing collaborators to have a voice, but allowing them to kind of guide the process and guide this project and let it evolve. And so seeing poems kind of happening around these workshops and encouraging the poets to have voices, and even trying poetry herself for the first time in a long time in this book, it's just so special and really rare. And so I just want to thank Monica for all of the effort in guiding these projects and allowing so many voices to be heard. And I can't tell you how impactful it is to the goals that you have with your work in terms of addressing climate crisis and making sure so many people in this world have a voice who maybe don't have a voice commonly. So get the book. I'm thrilled to be a part of it, and I'm thrilled to be a part of this ever-changing project, Monica. So thank you.
Oh my God, Leah, thank you so much. You're so it's so nice to see. I've lost your video. I've lost your
I know. Where did I go?
Give it up for Leah. Yay. Thank you, Leah, for those very, very generous words. Leah is like the salt of the earth. She's also
There I am.
an incredible teacher, and she's an art advisor. If any of you is a visual artist, I would, I would highly recommend having her look at your work and give you advice. She actually helped me way back when and came out to Paris for my first solo show.
Oh, right.
And, yes. So I mean, really, she really is an incredible asset in our world. So thank you so much. And I'm next going to introduce some of our wonderful poets, other poets that are here today with us. First, I'm going to introduce Dominic Green, who is also multidisciplinary. He's a writer, he's a filmmaker, visual artist. I went to see an incredible exhibition of his photographs last year at the Nicholson Project that I think dealt with the question, I thought, and he described it to me, of Black joy. And they were really incredibly moving works. And I recently watched, I've watched one of his films at the Atlas Project, and then recently saw his play and film online called The Last Genocide. A very incredible person. I'm honored that he's been active with my artwork, active in Rapture and also Warming Waters, and now a new project we're doing, Concrete Dreams. So Dominic, I'm giving you, turning it over to you to say whatever you like and recite one of your poems. I think the poem that's in the book. Thanks, Dominic.
Yeah.
Dominic, are you unmuted?
All right, well, thank you, Monica. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Well, thank everybody for coming to view Monica's book. And I'm so grateful to just be a part of Renew. It was just an amazing experience when I did it. I think it was what 2018, 2019. Just to be a part of it, and I'm just super grateful, and I'm very thankful. I enjoy seeing your process and how you work and how you're so inclusive of everyone, and everyone has a voice. Everyone's able to, just communicate, and it's a safe space more so than anything. And I'm just very grateful. Uh, so I'll get into my book. It is in the my poem. It is in the book. It's called I've Known. Um, and it goes, I've known the storms, I've known the rains from the heavens, I've known the weather, but no weather like this. Floods, hurricanes, torrential downpours. No, no weather like this. I've seen the changes. I've seen the changes in the clouds. I've seen the weather. I've known the storms. I've known the rains from the heavens. I've known the weather. And that's my poem. And again, Monica, thank you, and thank you to everybody who's come out and been a part of this Zoom call. Just just honored and very happy. Thank you.
That was amazing. Thank you, Dominic. You're one of the first brave souls that wrote a poem in our Rapture workshops, and you broke the ice for everyone. And I actually, after he wrote the poem, I was like, "Can I record you? Can I videotape you?" And he was willing to do all that. So thank you so much. You inspired me to also, expand my work. Thank you so much. Next, your wife Maya is also, I think, on the call. She's amazing. She's also written this beautiful poem, I Am Joyful, which I've been posting all over social media in the shape of the capital. So thank you for being here today too, Maya. And I'm going to next introduce, who wants to go next? Next is Jesmin Ara. Jesmin, apni achen. I'm going to introduce Jesmin Ara from New York. Jesmin Ara is a writer and a poet, and she's based in New York. She's also active with an organization and a publication called Nari, which means woman in Bangla. And she is going to read a poem in Bengali, and I'm going to put the Bangla poem, I'm going to put the translation into the chat. Is Jesmin Ara there? See if she's available.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Hi Monica.
Hello, আপনি আছেন? কেমন আছেন?
I'm okay. আমি ভালো আছি।
আপনি খুব সুন্দর দেখাচ্ছে নীল শাড়ি পরে।
না ভাবলাম আপনার water is blue, so I became your water today.
Thank you so much. Everyone, she's going to read the poem in Bangla because the Bangla poem is so beautiful, but I'm going to put the translation in the chat. I think it's there right now.
It's been a pleasure to be a part of your book, and I love the initiative you have, because I always care about the environment, and I do my part. I couldn't change the world, but I can contribute something. So your issues are like my issues. So when you asked me to go to your event, Queens, in 2019, 2 minutes to midnight, I wrote this poem. So I'm going to read this poem in Bangla, which is from the perspective of someone from our future generation. পূর্বপুরুষ, হে আমার পূর্বপুরুষ, তোমাদের দিনগুলো নিশ্চয়ই খুব আনন্দে কাটছে। তোমরা উপভোগ করছো বিশুদ্ধ বায়ু আর জল। তবে আমি কিন্তু শঙ্কিত আমার ও আমাদের কথা ভেবে, যখন দেখি তোমাদের ধ্বংসাত্মক ও হঠকারী ব্যবহার। যখন তোমায় দেখি বন উজাড় করতে, জ্বালানি তেল পুড়তে, আমি কাঁদি আর ভাবি, কি করে আমরা দম নেব বৃক্ষহীন কার্বন ডাইঅক্সাইড যুক্ত সেই বাতাসে। যখন তোমরা বর্জ্যগুলো পানিতে ফেলো, আমি কষ্ট পাই এই ভেবে যে সেই বর্জ্য খাল থেকে বিলে, বিল থেকে হাওরে, হাওর থেকে নদীতে, নদী থেকে সাগর, সাগর থেকে মহাসাগরে মিশে যাচ্ছে। একবারও কি ভাবছো কোথায় পাবে বিশুদ্ধ জল তোমার পরবর্তী প্রজন্মরা? আমি অসহায় বোধ করি যখন ভাবি তোমাদের প্লাস্টিক বর্জ্যের কথা। ওগুলো তো হাজার বছর ধরে অক্ষত পড়ে রইবে পৃথিবীতে। তোমাদের ইচ্ছে পূরণের জন্য কলকারখানা, যানবাহন, কত কি যে বানালে তোমরা। হয়তো ইতিমধ্যে জেনে গেছো কারখানার ধোঁয়া আর গরম বাতাসের ভয়ঙ্কর পরিণতি। যদি অ্যান্টার্কটিকার সব বরফ আর পৃথিবীর সব হিমবাহ গলে জল হয়ে যায়, তবে আমরা কোথায় গিয়ে দাঁড়াবো? ধনী গরিব, গঙ্গা কিংবা হাডসন নদীর পাড়ের যেই হন না কেন, কেউ আর বাঁচবে না, সবাই নিশ্চিহ্ন হয়ে যাবে। Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Monica, do you want me to read the English one too?
I think it's okay because I've sent it to everyone.
Okay.
Because it's so beautiful in Bangla, and I think we've sent the text is there for everyone, and I'm going to send the link to the whole book. And it's important to hear it in Bangla. It's very, very beautiful. Onek dhonnobad apnake. Onek
Okay.
dhonnobad.
Thank you so much.
Jasmine also participated in my 7 minutes on the B67 project in Brooklyn. That's when I met her actually, and we took a bus. We took a bus from Kensington to South Slope in Brooklyn, and the idea I had was to connect these two communities that were so separated, even though they were only 7 minutes apart by bus, and of course using public transport, green transport. And she rode the bus with me. There's a photo, I think, in this book of us on the bus together. Here it is.
Yeah.
It's in the book. In the book. And Rashadullah, who's here today, also joined that project. He came to the climate open mic after that and spoke out about his family's impact. He's from Bangladesh originally, but his family's moved from, I think, from the New Orleans area to now the Houston area, correct?
No, thank you for having me. They're still in the New Orleans area, and this past year we had, 6 or 7 close calls in that whole Louisiana Gulf Coast. It's hard not, as climate change is constantly on our mind. Thank you for doing all the work you're doing and gathering us all here. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Nice to see you, Rashad. Thank you again to Jesmin. I'm going to ask next if Sonja is there, Sonja Berry. I'm going to ask Sonja to recite a poem that's in the book that she wrote for as part of the second public art project I did last year called Warming Waters. Sonja has an incredible voice. She's a singer, a teacher. She's been involved with storytelling with saris and a number of my projects since I think the year 2016 or 2017, and I'm really happy to have her here.
Hello, everyone. It's certainly my pleasure to be here. It is my pleasure to work with Monica, and I am so proud of this wonderful work that you're doing. I'm really proud of your artistic and humanitarian efforts. And I am so grateful to be a part of it, not only through the Rapture project, but the Storytelling with Saris project, and how you've really brought me closer to you and the work that you're doing. I'm really, really proud of your work here. The poem that I have for you today is Mother Earth. Pledging to reduce your carbon footprint requires a commitment to change. Rearrange your priorities and consider Mother's nature, Mother's light, Mother's fire, and Mother's height, Mother's waters and Mother's winds. As we consider what we can do, I suggest that you ride a bike, take a hike. use energy efficient bulbs, and plant lots of seeds to spread mother's love. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. That poem, I've heard you say it a couple of times and I still love it. Thank you so much. Sonia's also
Thank you.
a song for us at the end. Thank you so much. Is Ra here? Rashika Johnson? Are you here? So the next poet is Rashika. Rashika Johnson. I met Rashika, I remember just exactly 2 years ago at Project Creates in DC. It's a wonderful arts organization in DC that focuses on youth. And Rashika's been involved and has written a whole bunch of wonderful poems. And she wrote this poem. I've asked her to recite a poem that she just wrote last week on January 14th. We had a whole workshop where we focused on the recent events at the Capitol and how we felt about it. And she wrote a poem. Rashika, if you're there, you're on. Not here, I'll send the poem to you through the chat because it's a really beautiful poem. Next, I'm gonna introduce, thank you all for those wonderful poems. I know I push everyone to write poems in very short amounts of time. So these are not, they're what they often consider their finished work. They're written in spaces of just 10 minutes. So these are really brilliant natural poets that can come up with poetry just like that. Next, I'm going to introduce another super dear friend, Josheen Oberoi. Josheen and I, my God, spent many years together on the Saucy board. Josheen is a gallerist and curator based out of New York. She's currently VP and director at DAG, an international gallery focused on South Asian modern art. Prior to this, she worked as director at Tyler Rollins Fine Art with a focus on contemporary Southeast Asian art. She also worked at Saffron Art as a specialist in South Asian art and Bodhi Art as a gallerist and associate curator. She's worked for Midtech, where she helped produce documentary series on Indian art and architecture and other projects for BBC. She has a master's in medieval Indian history from Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi and an MA in South Asian art history from Florida State University. And I just remember lots of fun road trips with you, where you taught me about, what is that chain where you get those Waffle House on our way down.
Waffle House. and in fact, that one of the road trips was to visit Leah, an exhibition that was that she was hosting, the Her Stories exhibition, right, at Tobman. And one of those road trips was there. So thank you so much. Thank you, Monica, for inviting me to this event. And thank you to all the participants, to all the performers. Beautiful, beautiful performance of poetry. So I think it's like a perfect afternoon to spend following a much required and needed inauguration this past week. Talking of community building, Blue, I think that this is sort of a perfect culmination of this week for me. So thank you again. I think I've been familiar with Monica's practice, I think now for almost a decade. I think we met in about 2010, 2011. And what I was thinking when I was like sort of reading through this incredible book, and I'm going to put it up again. I know Leah has already, but was kind of remembering your practice 10 years back, right? And being familiar with sort of the two-dimensional paintings you were doing at that point. And what I realized is that I thought it would be interesting for everyone and for me to sort of trace the threads that have tied your practice together over the last decade. When I look at motifs, I look at the concerns that you've been addressing, I kind of see a movement from specifics to a more universal concern or language. I'm looking at a more local concerns to, again, universal. And I think that kind of brings me to the idea of how intersectional your work is, your practices. And I think a lot of, I know intersectionality is, I think in a wider public sort of a buzzword now, but it's been part of the language of artists and activists for a long time, and it's obviously required. And I thought that it would be, I see those concerns. You talk of ecofeminism in your book. Again, gets a chance to read the essay, Leah's incredible essay as well. And you talk of ecofeminism, but I know, Monica, you and I have talked about the idea of anti-colonial, anti-racism, and I'm not sure I always saw that in your work when the practice began consciously, maybe subconsciously. I know your paintings included fabric, included the idea of women's body, the torso, included symbols of fertility. I remember this exquisite little sculpture you had made for the Her Stories exhibition, which was at the Queen's Museum in 2012. And then one of your first performances actually was saris and you, I believe, cutting onions, peeling onions, sitting on a bed. I know you said it happened in DC, and I do recall, I think it was 2012 or 13, it happened in Miami as well. And I think what I've seen, it feels like you've sort of, your practice has expanded from there. And, when it comes to fabric, we are looking at the use of saris, looking at the idea of a women's body, but in context of sort of ecological, environmental concerns. And again, coming back to the idea that, I know you've been an environmental lawyer for many years before you came back to your artistic practice, or where you, I guess, refocused on your artistic practice. So I thought as sort of a conversation with you, it would be interesting to try and understand how you moved, sari again, Leah talked about it as an art object, which is fascinating because it's also your medium. It's also the material, essential material that you work with. So I was wondering in conversation if you could actually take us back to that origin story and tell us, how that it was organic, but how that switch or how that movement to a bigger space, a bigger use of that medium and the choice of that material actually came about.
Yeah, thank you, Josheen. That's a very interesting question. It really started my use of the sari. I started using the sari blouse initially back in 2006 or something when I was in Paris. My mother had sent me a couple of sari blouses in the mail from Dhaka, and they arrived. And I started just painting them like an object. I wasn't necessarily thinking about the symbolic value behind it at the time, and it was sort of a pop art object. I'd always been very influenced by Jim Dine and his pop art robes, and I'd always been thinking about like what's going to be my what kind of objects do I want to focus in as a symbolic object. And I started with the sari blouse, and then soon it moved into being more than a pop art object and ended up taking on feminist symbolism. It's also very much connected to colonialism, right? The sari is a pre-colonial garment, but the sari blouse came in during the colonial era as a way of increasing modesty for women. And so it's also, so it has links to colonialism, which is linked to white supremacy. And so then later the sari, I started using it in the actual sari itself. I started cutting it and putting it into my drawings and paintings, and I started making installations out of it. And I think the reason I chose it is multifold. I didn't consciously decide. It was a time, I think, when a lot of artists were using objects to create sculptures and create work, and I wanted to think about what object I wanted to use as an ecofeminist. And I thought a sari, a hand-woven cotton sari, would be really a great storyboard, because first of all, it's natural cotton. It's not, it's hand woven. It has links to eternal, the idea of the never ending and the never beginning. And also it's a material that's never thrown out. It's always reused and recycled, right? And in South Asia, we never throw away our saris. Other garments might get thrown out, but saris are either given to someone else or they're cut up and recycled into gathas or blankets. They're used in different ways. So I thought it would be also a really a good material. And it's also because I'm thinking about working in a large scale. I also thought about that. It's always such a pain to ship my paintings, to set things up, and it's so easy to fold the sari, and I can use this tiny sari. It's 18 feet though. When you unfurl it, you can use it to make. I like to make things that are small but also monumental. And so as I became interested in art that's in the street and in bigger spaces, it became. I realized that this would be a great material. So it's part of the reason. But there's a lot of obviously mythology around the sari. You know, the first performance, one of the first performances that I did with the storytelling with saris, long saris. Sunita is here from Manila. Oh my God, it must be 5 a.m. But she was there for that. Josheen, you were there for that, the Dumbo Arts Festival in 2013. I also, you know, the sari also, because I'm from Bengal, from South Asia, it had a lot of you know, cultural association for me as well. Obviously, I saw my mother when we moved to this country, you know, she carried our heritage with us by wearing that sari. She wore her sari for many years, even when she was working as a social worker or Catholic charities. And she wore her sari for decades. You know, she would wear it in the house, even in the freezing cold winter. So for us, for those of us that are immigrants also, sometimes, you know, we see certain links. Some of the, and women are the carriers of heritage, right? Whether it's through our food or our clothing or rituals. So I hope that answers the question.
Sorry. Yes, no, absolutely. I think you know, I'm looking at the chat, and I think, you know, some people are saying it's, I mean, I think process is as important as object, right? I think especially with so many sort of artists and poets on this call. So I think it's fantastic to hear. And you know, I think that what I was also curious about as sort of part of that practice is the expansion to public. You know, I mean, and I know, you know, when you and I were chatting, and for me, I observed that a lot of your performance art used to be, you know, centered around sari, but you as a performer. And I know you pointed out that it's, I mean, I guess it's a function of the pandemic that you haven't done, obviously, sort of a performance work yourself recently. But I think the you know, they felt like a sort of significant expansion, sort of a parallel practice of public art installations and interactive, you know. And I know that one of the first performances you had the element of texting, where you allowed the public to text you during the performance. And in fact, I think it was in one of the Dumbo, it was in the Dumbo Art Festival, where we had like this placard where you had your cell phone number, and you were in the performance, you were just sitting there on the bed, right? If I remember correctly, and people were texting you. You know, you got some odd ones, you got some problematic texts, but you also got, I'm sure, sort of engaging, interesting feedback. And then I think sort of the idea of that interactive component, you have really scaled up in a sense, and made inclusive. You know, I mean, poetry is a form of inclusion, having you know, and perhaps deliberate, perhaps organic. I'm curious to know, but I'm curious to know when and how that shift happened, because I know community building is, I think, been sort of the bedrock of your, I think it's very much you and your practice, right? Like you flow into your practice in that way. And I think your wider concerns flow into your practice. So I'd love for you to speak about that, like what that shift from you as your performance to a more public, interactive scale that you're on right now.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I mean, you know, and it's been a very exciting shift for me. I've been wanting, ever since I moved to Washington from Paris in 2010, my work shifted a lot. I went from painting, that was my goal. When I was in Paris, I was just making canvases, and I was obsessed with them. I just was painting, and I couldn't even draw. My gallerists wanted me to make drawings, books on paper. I couldn't do it. And my goal when I moved to Washington was to try to shift into first working on paper, but I also had this idea of wanting to make public art. And everyone poo-pooed me in the beginning, but I've had this idea, and I wanted to make public art that was different, that was not your typical mural. I love those murals, I love all those sculptures, not to get me wrong, but I wanted to make public art that was built by the community, and that was ephemeral, that would be up there for a while for people to watch while they drive by or walk by, but then it would just disappear, just like, you know, it would be taken away and not leave a trace, not hurt anything, not have any trace on the environment. And so it was a big shift. And I actually made a proposal in DC. We have a public art grant. We have a public art a panel that decides on public art for the city, and several different types of public art. And so I decided to apply. And I think it was, and actually it was a big departure for them. They had never as far as I could tell, they had never funded public art, anything like the kind of stuff I was doing. And what I did was I took the grant and gave most of the money, a lot of it, to the community to help them make the work. So that's part of what was, I think, also kind of a little bit different and maybe insidious about the process. But I, you know, and what I'm doing now with my latest public art grant is I'm actually helping people in DC get internet. I'm actually using the funding to get internet and tablets for people that need it. And that's what I'm using the grant money for, because, you know, what do we need? I'm trying to use my work as an artist to really engage and to make a different kind of public art. So it's very exciting for me. I'm actually very grateful that, you know, that I'm able to be funded for this kind of very unusual public art where they don't end up with anything tangible. You know, they don't have a sculpture or a mural that stays, you know, it's usually a 3-day project, but I spend a whole year working on the project with people. And so the public art is the workshops. It's the work that we do together. And then we have this kind of installation, which is open to the greater public in the street, you know. But yeah, it's been a big shift and it's exciting. And I think, you know, as Leah said, yeah, it's sort of like, you know, in my performances, sort of I was in the middle of it as like the object sort of in the performance and the subject in a way, but in doing the public art, in, you know, it's my concept, but I'm working with a lot of other people to develop the concept. And I'm also kind of setting a stage, but also sort of maybe directing and doing choreography of the whole thing. So it's interesting, but it's exciting for me. I love, you know, ever since Dumbo, I became really excited in the idea of street art, of being in the street, in the public, you know, not in a museum, but outside, you know, and having people engage, directly involved, not just viewers looking at the label on the wall, although that is beautiful too, but a different way. I found it very, you know, and maybe because I was a child actor back in Bangladesh as a kid, but I mean, somehow it gave me a different kind of energy, and people really seem to enjoy it. People seem to, and I didn't realize also how much a need there is for art. A lot of adults and people, once they finish school, like don't have any connection to art, visual art, or, you know, their creative life is really kind of cut off, you know. And those of us that, you know, our artists, official artists, get to enjoy this thing, this part of our life that a lot of people don't. And I had people weeping in my first workshops just by like touching the woodblock and painting on the sari. They got so much joy out of it. They were so moved by it. And I didn't realize it would have that kind of an impact. So that's been a wonderful plus. So it's been exciting to move my work in that direction.
It's been very exciting to see that sort of parallel practice almost, or to sort of develop as well. I think for all of us, I'm sure a lot of us on the call who've been following your work. And I do love the idea of you, you know, when you say people don't have access or the capacity to engage with art in the formal settings that I think tend to be sort of produced, right? Exhibitions being produced and organized, and the spaces in which they organize. So I do love, it's quite taking art to the people, right? When you do it on the streets. And I know the idea of, like you said, people driving by, you know, you're not demanding time from someone who doesn't necessarily have the sort of the leisure and the agency at that point to give time to art. But you know, that little sort of glimpse, or that little even transient moment is you know, brings art to our lives. And I think we all need that. I think we all agree on this call. I think that you know, art is necessary. So I love that about your practice. So thank you, Monica. I don't want to take up, I know we don't have a lot of time, and I'm people on the call might have questions. I do want to say it's very interesting. I just learned a little nugget about you, that you were a child actor in Bangladesh. I did not know that. So that was an interesting little nugget of information about young Monica that I think we all learned. But I'm going to open it up, I think, to our participants on the call, and any questions. I think they can unmute themselves or put it in the chat. Either one works.
Hello.
Hi, Hi, was someone speaking?
Yes. I was wondering what the next project is that I haven't heard. This is Jerome Johnson in Hawaii.
Hi, Jerome. How are you?
Fantastic. I was like so excited about hearing what you do, what you have done, right? And all of the coordination between so many different people, because I'm actually an accountant and professor, but I have this term called connecting the dots, which doesn't sound very artistic, but that's what you guys are doing all the time, and connecting the whole of society. And one of these days, I'm gonna figure out a way to get an economic component to that where you'll be able to see that as a part of art. Maybe we can collaborate on something.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, thank you for asking about my next project. So I'm working currently on another public art project called Concrete Dreams, and several of the participants are here on the call today. And so because of the pandemic, it's been really hard to do, performances or exhibitions, and I'm not that interested in doing virtual exhibitions. I decided I'm just not going to do them. But public art, again, I think it takes on a real outsized importance during the pandemic, things that you can see while you're outside. And so,
Absolutely.
The Concrete Dreams concept that I came up with last year, again, is building on the poetry. Concrete poetry is a kind of visual poetry. When you take the words and you write them in a way, it's called concrete poetry. So the idea was to work on Zoom workshops with the community, because it's not safe to work on these saris, and work on poetry on the themes of the pandemic and racism and climate justice. Those are the themes that I did a focus group, and those are the themes that people wanted to work on. That would be really at the things that they felt that they wanted to speak about. And so we're working on those right now. We've had 3 workshops so far, and we're working on poems. And last week, as I mentioned, we did a bunch of poems in the shape of the Capitol Dome, and they were really, really beautiful. And you can, if you follow me on my website and Storytelling with Saris in the blog, there's some of those, some of the pictures from that are there. And so that's going to culminate in an installation in May in Washington, D.C. at the exterior of the D.C. Arts Center in Adams Morgan, which is a very lively area. And so I'm collaborating with a number of artists on that project, including Nirmal Raja, who's on the call, I think right now. I saw her name. She's an amazing artist and sculptor in Milwaukee, and she's going to help me put some of this poetry into sculptural form. And we're going to have a bunch of Zoom lessons, and I'm going to work on that. And the installation is going to involve street sculptures that are going to be on the sidewalk, as well as some saris that are hanging from the top that will have some of the poetry transcribed onto the saris into concrete poetry and a certain kind of designs, and as well as projections. I'll be collaborating with Robin Bell again. He's an amazing filmmaker and light artist based in DC, and he's going to work with me to transform those poems into light projections as well. And the projections
wow.
will be on the building using projection mapping at night, and the poems will be set out, different phrases of the poem. So it's going to be a very, really
phenomenal
project, and that can be seen in Washington. And we're also going to live stream every night. That's a big, that's part of our budget, is to have high quality video and live streaming so that everyone can watch it around the world. So that's my next project that's going to be happening in May.
Congratulations. That is so exciting. I'm glad I asked that question, because this is amazing and timely and also futuristic. Yeah, in terms of helping. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerome.
Hi, may I say something? Hello, everybody.
Hi, Sunita.
Hi, hello. It's good.
So early to join. I was so
Yes.
when you signed up.
I'm so happy to be able to have been able to catch some of the discussion at this ungodly hour. But you have sanctified it, of course, with your art and your insights, and with Josheen's discussion and questions, as well as seeing everybody else. Monica, I want you to share with us what you shared with me already before about how you feel about what it means to be also part of the project, because I believe this was encouraged. You were encouraged to do this at a workshop or something that you had gone through earlier in your, as you were doing your two-dimensional works, and how performance has become so important to you. Can you tell us a little bit about that story and that involvement of you being part of your artistic work also?
Oh, I think you must be talking, Sunita, about how I ended up doing my first performance. How I was, yeah. I mean, and Josheen was asking me this last night too when we were chatting. I hadn't really thought about doing performance art. I was doing these paintings, and I was part of a studio in Washington area called the Red Dot Studio. The director of that is Margaret Boozer, an amazing artist and sculptor. And she and we would have these open studios once or twice a year, and you had to transform your studio into this experience for a visitor. And I decided to do an installation with saris. I was working with saris in my paintings, and it was one of my first installations with saris, and it also had onions in it. It had all these things in it, and I had a chair and rumpled saris and various things. We used to have critiques. We had these seminars every Saturday. We would we would talk about each other's work and talk about how to move it to the next level. And all my studio mates, several of them said to me that they thought my paintings and my drawings were performative, in the sense that I was cutting things and gluing things, and they could imagine me doing that, cutting and gluing, but I was missing from them. My own body was missing from it. And they said, and this installation too, you should be in it. Why aren't you in it? We see you as being missing from it. So they kind of challenged me. And so I decided then, I thought, oh, wow, I'd never thought about it before. And I thought, well, maybe I should try doing a performance. So that was my first time. It was in 2011 that they challenged me. This guy almost took it as a dare. And so I decided to then, that's when I started thinking, okay, if I were to put my body in an artwork, what would it be and what would I do? And I came up with the idea of indelible scent. That was my very first performance. I did it first in DC for the DC Art Center, this wonderful art institution in DC. I did it for their big gala in the Meridian House outside. It was an outdoor project. And I decided that I was going to be in a bed and covered with this canopy of saris, and I was going to lie in the bed. So I would be an object in the bed, like the odalisque, but I was going to be very active. I was going to be a feminist. I was not going to be this passive naked woman in those paintings. I was going to be dressed in a sari, and I was going to be reading texts by women. And I was also going to have my cell phone, my iPhone, and people could text me, and I would respond to them with passages of what I was reading. So I did this performance. But yeah, I did it because I was dared, kind of, and I was pushed. So it's very important, I think, for artists to talk to other artists, and it was really great. I mean, the artists that I worked with at Red Dirt were a lot of them were doing performance. JJ McCracken and others, and Siobhan Rigg was doing really interesting research-based work. So they gave me a lot of ideas and inspiration, and I embarked on my first performance from them. So I think that's what you were getting at. Is that what you were asking about, Sunita?
Yes. I love that story.
Yeah, and then, my performance was the first time I did it. I can't say I did a very good job. I was so nervous. The very first time I did it, I basically after 10 minutes I stopped because I thought it had been 2 hours, and I realized that you need to have someone helping you with timing. Because when you're in it, right, Sunita, it can feel like the first time you do it, it can feel like forever. And then the next time I did it was in Miami Beach. And that time I had the wonderful Ames Armstrong. They assisted me with the performance, and they signaled me, every 30 minutes. And I kept going for 2 hours, and it was a real endurance performance. So it's good to have but that's how I was pushed to get into it. And I enjoyed it. And I realized that I was able to engage with people in a whole different way, right? Than with two-dimensional work.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Nice to see you, Sunita.
Yes, I've had the honor of being with you and performing side by side you in the Dumbo, and as well as in the Brooklyn Museum.
Yes, that was fantastic. Are there other questions in the chat? I haven't been watching the chat.
I think Zaid had their hand up at one point.
Yes, I have a suggestion, but before that, I'd just like to say that I'm so grateful to be here today. It was an amazing session. I also want to briefly say how I know Monica Di. So in 2010 World Environment Day, I did a project in Dhaka Arts Center on waste. So I was collecting packaging of my own waste and I displayed it. And next month, I see this massive red painting with this blouse Monica was talking about earlier. And that's the first time we met. And then we discovered that our families have been connected from since before we were even born, in the Liberation War and so many other stories. Monica, I was wondering if it's possible in future sessions like this, you know how the pandemic has connected us through technology, and we're zooming in and out of all over the world right now. So I know that you've done workshops with women in Kathakali, and you've helped develop leadership skills with them. And so if we could provide a device, maybe some of them already have a smartphone, and they could zoom into one of these sessions with us, it would be amazing. It would just add to what we had today here, amazing strong voices.
Yes, so that's a great idea, and I have been doing that for some of our workshops. We've been trying. It's very hard to get from the village, but we have been trying from Dhaka at least Zoom, because it requires a high level of internet speed. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so we've been doing the workshops that I'm doing in DC right now. We're doing them at 10 a.m., even though it's not convenient for everyone, with the hope that people in Bangladesh can join at 9 p.m.
Right.
So far, they've had a harder time because of technology. I am on the phone with them every day myself, but yeah, that would be a nice thing. The problem is the internet is very weak there.
Right.
We've had people from Dhaka join for sure. I have an assistant in Dhaka now who's helping me with my work there, so she's able to join. Her family's from Kathakali also, but the village has very low speed internet. So it's hard to do Zoom, unfortunately. But yeah, I love it. I mean, it's a great idea. And it's partly why I'm always looking at the time to try and figure out how to get more and more, and what times we can do to get more engagement with people around the world. But yes, I'm trying to do that. I will see. I'm trying to actually get computers and better internet in the village to see if there's a way to engage them. And we are actually starting computer training in the village this month.
Oh, nice.
First time ever. We just, so that's exciting.
Oh, and thanks to Josheen for leading the discussion where it was led. That was really great.
Thank you so much, Josheen. Does anyone ever have any questions? We wanted to have Sonia sing "Change Is Gonna Come" to end everything. Any last thoughts or questions before? Hi, Diane. I can't see. How are you? Are you in North Carolina, Diane?
I am, but I got our little signs from our march, and I just want to thank everybody for all of your thoughtful poems and discussion. And on the back of this it says, "What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding?"
Diane is an artist, and I met her I met her in Miami. I think in 2014, right? Did you join the Jalabayu performance in 2014? And so, so when I talk about art and politics and activism, they're very linked, So we did this performance in 2014 together, in 2016 together.
Yeah.
And then
this is how we found each other at the march.
Women's March. So then, and then all these women that I had met through my performances in Miami called me up after Trump was elected and were like, "What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" And then they all decided to come to DC for the march. And I hosted, I think, 15 people from all around, for a lot of them from Miami, but also from like California, Florida, and a lot of youth. And Diane made these incredible poster paintings, eco-feminist poster paintings. And we went down. That was exactly almost 4 years ago from Thursday. And I actually,
but we were able to find each other from them. But anyway, I love you, Monica. This has just been so great and enlightening, and all of the speakers and the discussions. And I'm
it's on the cover.
I'm right there. Love it. Thank you. Yeah, I want to, kind of
No, but all of us that have been like marching, writing, speaking out, voting, calling voters.
beach with the
There's been a
coconuts.
huge fight. Oh my God, Elizabeth Grant is here. Elizabeth Grant did this beautiful interview of me that's in this book, and she's been really involved in all this work, public art work of mine since 2018, and she works for Clean Air Moms, and she's gotten me involved in their wonderful lobbying and activism on clean air and climate. But yeah, so climate justice is so exciting. We are back. We never really left, but we're back in the Paris Accord, and a lot of the environmental rollbacks of the Trump administration are being stopped, and we hope that a lot more can happen. But all of us also, I really think individual work and individual action is important. Even during the pandemic, let's try and conserve energy and not throw those disposable masks everywhere, and let's try and protect our planet. And sometimes we feel so desperate, and that sometimes we forget things that we used to do before, because we're going through this horrific time. But I think we can learn from it. And that's part of what I try to talk about here, is try to renew our relationship with the earth, with each other, with our government, with our, we can't take anything for granted. We've come back from the edge of the abyss. I mean, we were about to drown, and we've somehow found a swing and have come back up, right? And we've got to keep on walking and not drowning. And it's been a fight, and it's not just in America. Of course, it's been around the world. There's a growing authoritarianism everywhere, and backsliding on environmental protections. But
yeah. Well, and Monica, it's so lovely to have this conversation with all of you. Thank you so much for hosting this excellent conversation. And I think, between the individual and the big federal government, or if you're in a different country, your national government, this is a perfect time to re-engage with your mayor, with your city council, with your county council, whoever your local government is. They have so much to do in terms of clean energy and conservation. So if you can take that up, if you haven't spoken with your representative for your city about this stuff, this is the perfect time to become educated about what's happening in your town, because you can make a difference there.
Yeah, thank you for that, Elizabeth. Thank you so much, Liz. Oh my God, it's so wonderful to see you all. I see my friend Anand is here from Paris. It's so happy. It's a moment that we have to have a little bit of joy, even in the middle of this horrible disease we're living through. Anand is in Paris. They're on super lockdown. All of you that feel bad here in America, we are in Paris now. They can't go out after 6 p.m. And I'm sure that Jen and Nella in London are probably under. You guys have little incremental zones, block by block, what you all can do.
Well, now we're on a national lockdown now, so back kind of like we were in the beginning.
Yeah.
Nothing's open, but hopefully not for long.
So everyone everyone stay safe. There is hope.
Monica, before we go, did you mention there's a link from where we can collect the book?
Yes, I can send the link. I'm so
Please.
I didn't do that.
And also I realized that we do have a woman from Kathakali on this call.
Yeah, my mom.
Exactly. So, Auntie, would you like to say a couple of words?
We have Agun Mukherjee on the call. That's right. We have my mom on the call. Ma kichu bolbe, Zaid kotha bolche.
I can't unmute her. I tried to unmute Auntie. I don't know, for some reason I can't do it.
Oh, it's okay then. Yeah, I think it's somehow locked or something. Thank you all for being here. I'm so grateful, all of you, especially staying up late and waking up at 5 in the morning from all different time zones. Oh my goodness.
Monica?
Yeah.
Hi. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, and thank you
to you
for coming by.
Congratulations for a change here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming by to get the book from my backyard the other day. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Ginny works at the Environmental Protection Agency, but I met her when I gave a talk there years ago. I think in 2014. Yeah. Thank you for being here. দেখা যাচ্ছে কিছু বলবে? জাহিদ বলছে তুমি কিছু বলতে চাও?
I mean, I want to thank you, everybody. It was enjoyable. I enjoyed everybody, but you know, and thanking all of you to come and give me also all sorts of inspiration, interesting discussion. And Monica is doing it, I know. At first, I had some doubt and I was worried about her, but now I think she's enjoying and she has a lot of friends and women, men from all over the world. And I'm really, really happy for her and for all of you. And I am from Katakali. So anybody wants to talk to Katakali's women, here it is. any question you have, you can ask me. So I will try to tell you all about my village. And I have a book also. And soon we are hoping to have an English copies. So the people here who are not Bangladeshi or Bangladesh or Indian Bangla will be happy to read that book. And Bengali women or men, they can have the Bengali Bangla edition. Okay. Thank you all. I love you. And I bless all of you from my heart. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie.
My mom's first Zoom call on her own. I'm very excited.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mashi.
Thank you, Auntie.
Now we're going to ask Sonia to sing this Sam Cooke song. Change is good. I know I make you sing it all the time, but it's such a good song. It's our song, right, Sonia?
You're right. And I love it. I love it. I love being here for you. And I love what the song represents. So this was really wonderful. So cheers to everyone. And I'm going to sing A Change Is Gonna Come by Sam Cooke. Thank you for the opportunity.
Woo! That was amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'll let you go. I've kept you long enough. Thank you to all our speakers and poets and all of you that turned in on Zoom, even though you're tired of Zoom. Thank you so much. Let's stay in touch, especially those of you in other time zones. Thank you so much. My goodness, we had people from Paris, Rome, New York, Manila, where else? Honolulu. It's amazing. Wow. DC, Baltimore. Yay. Thank you.
Thank you.
What about taking a picture of all of us, with all of us?
I think we should try. Yeah, let's see if we can get everyone. I don't know if we can get everyone in the Zoom in one frame. And we have, we also have Diane in North Carolina. Let's not forget the Carolinas. Thank you for joining. My goodness. Thank you, Leah and Josheen for speaking. My God, put you guys on the
fantastic.
Yeah, you guys did a great.
Lovely afternoon.
Thank you. I want to see you though. I haven't seen anyone in so long. It's horrible.
It was an amazing afternoon.
It was.
Thank you, Sonja,
and
for
thank
your
you, Sonja. That was
voice.
Really, really lovely.
Thank
Perfect
you.
ending.
Your voice is amazing. I know.
It was an amazing afternoon.
Thank you all.
Thanks to the poets. Thank you, Josheen.
Thank you. Bye, Leah.
Office.
Good to see you. Good to see everyone.
Take care, everybody.